What's cracking, everybody? XehrFelrose here, bringing you some Pokemon Go Beta League content, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at the super strong team featuring Golisopod by fellow trainer, a mind joke, who hit legend this season with this team back in the rotation that we had Ultra League previously. I did these battles before in that rotation, but didn't get the video out in time, so you guys are going to check out my battles with this team from back then, but that's okay because this team is still super relevant and I feel like it's extremely strong, so let's check it out. So we've got the first battle here is going to be our Alolan Sandslash into Gyarados. So this is a really nice lead here because if it's running Dragon Breath, which they usually are, we resist that damage and outpace with Ice Punch. Now, this team has a Sandslash Giratina core, but keep in mind though, the Giratina is running Dragon Breath, which, you know, you may originally think that, like, hey, you know, what's going on with this? Why run this core? Because Obstagoon and Scrafty are everywhere. But the thing is that Giratina with Dragon Breath can actually mow through those two quite nicely, so not super worried about those. Plus Golisopod is an anti-fighter in the back, has the Shadow Claw, but the X-Scissor and Liquidation, those damages add up, and you're going to see that in this video. So we've got to just play this lead out because honestly, Giratina and Golisopod really don't want to see this Gyarados, honestly, because it has that Dragon Breath damage. The opponent's going to come in with an Excadrill, running some Master League Premier Cup team in the Ultra League here. Drill Run is going to get the shield. Now I'm going to be able to come in with my Giratina here and start to load up on energy. Now I could have come in with my Golisopod and landed in the Liquidation here, but I would have been forced to use my shield, and I'm kind of hoping that my opponent tries to swap out. I'm using the bulk of Giratina here to try and force my opponent into a corner. Also, something to keep in mind as well, my Giratina is not the greatest IVs. It's just the rank 1 raid IV, so it's not like it's, you know, a top ranked Giratina by any means. But now that my opponent has jumped their energy from their Excadrill, now I can come in with Golisopod, farm down. My opponent comes in with a Alolan Muck, and the fact that I have a shield means that I can just go for double Liquidation, and that probably is going to be enough. I'm going to find out here. So the Liquidation is about 35-40%, it looks like, and since they're running Poison Jab, I'm able to come in with my Alolan Sandslash, and since they're doing literally 1 damage per Poison Jab, I'm able to force them to throw some of that energy into my Alolan Sandslash, shield up a potential Dark Pulse here, which they do throw. I think the Acid Spray was definitely the way to go here, but now I'm able to go for basically 2 charge moves. I'm going to go for the Liquidation and then follow up with an X-Scissor if that's not enough, and that's going to take care of this game. Very well played to my opponent here as the Excadrill comes in, as that's why I built up to an extra move, because of the Excadrill. So that's going to take out Exca, and that's a good game. Well played to my opponent. Moving into the next game, we're going to have Sandslash on the lead versus a Steelix. This is another really good lead, and another lead that I don't really care to bring in my other 2 Pokemon into. So I'm going to stay in here, throw with good timing with these drill runs here, and I'm going to hopefully force shields off my opponent. If my opponent goes up to the Earthquake and throws a move, I'm going to respect it. Now, they do get to an Earthquake. If you don't know, Dragon Tail counts are the same as Mudshot counts. They're just different turns. So 8 is going to be what it's going to be to get to that first Earthquake, and then it's going to be 7 afterwards, just like Mudshot. But my opponent does go for the Earthquake straight away. I shield it up, and I'm going to go for the Drill Run to take out their Steelix, and then they come in with a Dragonite, and I'm like, oh, there's no way that this person is not triple weak, but they are, and they just concede because I just kept farming. I would say good game, but that person didn't really feel that way about that game, I have a feeling. So Jellicent in the lead. This is going to be a really good opportunity to flex the Shadow Alolan Sandslash, because this is where I want to see the Jellicent, honestly. With Giratina, I'm not doing super effective damage back regularly with my fast moves, so this is a better position. And Golisopod, the charge moves don't do anything here, so I would much rather see the Sandslash here. Now, I will always shield up the moves if they build up to Shadow Ball. If my opponent builds up and goes for Surf Bait, I will no shield the Shadow Ball that comes after, because I can still get to a point where I can farm down the Jellicent after that second charge move. So I'm going to shield up another Shadow Ball. I do go down to 0-1 shields here, but with all this energy, it's going to be very difficult for my opponent to just not shield any of this. So let's see what they come in with here. The opponent doesn't even need to wait out the switch clock, but they're just genuinely maybe not sure what to come in with. So the Cobalion's going to come in here, and they're going to have to shield or eat this drill run, and I go immediately for the second drill run here, and then I'm going to swap out into my Giratina. The reason why is because even though I'm taking double super effective damage from those double kicks, I need to do some chip damage here to this Cobalion before my Giratina can come in and safely do anything to it, because I'm running Dragon Breath. So my opponent is going to swap in a Charizard here with some energy. If I only had Ancient Power, would be nice, but not necessary here. The opponent coming in with a Charizard basically means that I can go for another Dragon Claw. I can easily eat this Dragon Claw, and I'm looking to either go for a Golisopod, taking out the Cobalion, or I'm looking to let my Sandslash drill run the Cobalion. Whichever one of those ends up happening, I'm expecting that it's most likely going to end up being the Golisopod that finishes the game here, just because I know that it can tank one Stone Edge if it needs to. My opponent is not going to be able to throw another charge move here, so all I have to do is get to this Liquidation, and that's going to take them out, and that's going to be a good game. Golisopod really coming in clutch here, with that being able to resist the fighting type and still deal neutral damage back to Cobb. So good game to my opponent there, well played. Let's move into the next game here. We're going to have Sandslash against the Pidgeot. This is where I want to see that Pidgeot, because obviously Golisopod is not something that I care to see. So my opponent safe swaps into a Nidoqueen. And, yeah, Trainer, that is not a good move here. We do not want to swap a Nidoqueen into the Alolan Sandslash. You're forced to shield up the first drill run, and now I'm going to try to catch an Earth Power on my Giratina. But my opponent is very, very patient, very well done. They hold on to their energy. They still throw the Earth Power, but they're able to farm up extra energy instead, which means they're going to be that much closer to the next Earth Power. So I was kind of hoping that maybe I would have caught the Poison Fang bait there, but it's okay. I still absorb the energy here, and I would much rather absorb the energy here. And I'm not going to bother shielding, because if my opponent has a Pidgeot in the lead, and they decided to swap in Nidoqueen, I have a feeling that their entire team could very well be weak to my Sandslash. But I was ready to put shields down, because once we got that low, the Dragon Breaths would have been enough to KO. Now, they come in with a Cobalion, and this is actually very dangerous because they're getting a very healthy farm down against me. So, here's the problem now. I'm going to come in with Golisopod, because that's going to force them to throw the Stone Edge, and that's going to waste more of their energy, which means that I have a much better opportunity to make something happen here. I can shield once again. It's okay for me to put 2 shields down here because of all the energy I'm getting on my Golisopod, and I'll be able to get to the next one faster. So I'm going to get a little bit of extra energy here, and then I'm going to fire off an Ice Punch into the Pidgeot. Pidgeot with Brave Bird cannot one-shot my Sandslash by any means, so they're basically going to have to let their Pidgeot go here. And I'm hoping that, I'm just hoping that my Golisopod's going to be able to come in just Liquidation and just one-shot that Cobalion from where it's going to be at. So I'm going to overfarm a bunch of energy here, and I'm going to actually CMP tie. I'm hoping that my opponent goes for the Brave Bird here, because that would allow my Ice Punch to do more damage and take out. So I specifically waited for the CMP to throw, hoping that they would go for that Brave Bird, which they did. And now I'm going to be able to get to an Ice Punch against the Cobalion, and I'm hoping that maybe they think it's a drill run and let this go. But the opponent is very smart, knowing their counts, but because of all the energy that I have on my Golisopod, I can throw an X-Scissor bait, and I should be able to get to the Liquidation immediately afterwards. So I go for an extra fast move here. In hindsight, probably could have been safer and gone for double Liquidation, but I wasn't going to risk it, and that still paid off, so well played to my opponent there. So we're going to have this next game, we're going to have a Galvantula, Shadow Galvantula on the lead. Very spicy pick here. Sandslash thankfully does so much damage just with the Ice Punch alone. And if my opponent decides to go straight Discharge, this is a very favorable matchup for my Alolan Sandslash, because we outpace with the Ice Punches, just going straight Ice Punch. So keep in mind, though, that Drill Run does do slightly more damage than Ice Punch, so because I can reach that Drill Run here without having to worry about CMP or bad timing, I'm just going to go straight for it. And it takes them out, and thankfully it does, because they come in with a Swampert, and I'm going to straight go into my Golisopod here. My opponent comes in with a Giratina, a Dragon Breath Giratina, mind you. And so that essentially means that I have Sandslash that I can align to the Giratina here, and I have my Giratina that I can align to their Swampert. Now the problem is that their Swampert has Earthquake most likely, and in hindsight, yeah, Golisopod may have been the better thing to bring in, but or Giratina might have been the better thing to bring in and leave Golisopod in the back for the Swampert, but that's quite okay. I'm forcing the opponent to throw some energy here. Sandslash getting a nice farm down here is going to really help me against the Swampert. So I'm not going to go for a full farm down here. I will launch some energy as soon as I can, or at least I hoped I would. My opponent throws before I'm able to really make that commitment, and then they're going to bring in the Swampert immediately. So what I'm going to do is, before they can get any mud shot damage off on my Sandslash, I'm going to save that energy, and I'm going to come in with my Giratina and just start going to town. And my opponent is going straight Hydro Cannon here, and I do believe they were at an Earthquake now. So they're going to go for the Earthquake. They do bait me. I almost usually imagine they're going to go for the Earthquake first, because most players who use bulky Pokemon are like, oh, I don't need to shield this first move because I can live it. So I was hoping that they would go for the Earthquake first because they think I wouldn't shield it. But I did, and they baited correctly. So because it's a Shadow Swampert, the Dragon Claw, or the Dragon Breath damage is going to rip through this thing quite nicely. And I'm going to be able to get this Dragon Claw off, and it would have combo play into the Ice Punch to take out the Giratina in the back, and that's going to be a good game. Well played. Once again, this team synergy is just really strong, off the charts kind of stuff, and I love this team. As I have been having, prior to playing this team, I've been having an absolutely terrible time, losing all kinds of my points, and I was bleeding elo, guys. Like, it was bad, but I picked up this team, and it just clicked so well. And I think Golisopod is a really strong pick in the Ultra League. I think it was just a matter of trying to find out what team works well with it. And I feel like this has got to be the team. It just feels right. And I also miscount there, and I go straight into a CMP tie with this XehrFelrose. So I'm going to have to fire back. Now that I'm down 0 shields to 2, going to have to see if my opponent's also willing to throw a shield down, which they are, thankfully, which means that I can farm them all the way down and get a liquidation off if I want to against whatever comes in here, whether it's their Kingdra in the back. Now, I remember this game. This one's a tragic game, so I can now come in with my Sandslash here. My opponent has to go for the Octazooka against my Sandslash, otherwise it's resisted. I'm going to go for the Drill Run here. I should probably go for Ice Punch, but I go for Drill Run because, once again, it does a little bit more damage, and I'm not expecting them to shield it, so I'd rather get the extra damage off, considering it's just one more Shadow Claw. I don't feel like there's really much of a downside here. So they go for the Octazooka, and I decide to switch regardless of whether or not they get the debuff, because I'm expecting the S-Cab to come back in, which it does. Now, this is the one time that I really wish I was running Shadow Claw, and I certainly wouldn't mind it if you decided to run Shadow Claw on this team. You just have to remember that you do give up the Obstagoon and Scrafty matchups for other things like S-Cav and things. So I still think that the amount of times we've been seeing Goon and Scrafty in the Ultra League lately, I think the Dragon Breath is definitely the way to go, but I don't hate Shadow Claw. And as always, of course, stay hydrated. Water is important. So my opponent gets to pretty much double Drill Run here. And I have to now, in order to win this game, I essentially have to be able to Shadow Claw down their S-Cab, which I'm not going to be able to do. So I pull the trigger on an Ice Punch, and that is not going to be enough because they're going to be able to come in now with their Kingdra, and oh, so close, but by one turn, they're going to be able to take me out with the Dragon Breath. So very good game, very close, well played to my opponent there. So we're going to have Stunfisk, Galarian Stunfisk in the next game. So I'm going to go for this Drill Run a little bit after. I just want to make sure they don't try to catch on me. And then when they go for their Earthquake, I'm going to swap. So I'm going to try to catch that Earthquake on something else or stay in. I guess that's fine too. I figure that because I'm running Giratina with Dragon Breath, probably not going to be an ideal thing to swap that in, because I do believe that they would completely clap my face. And my opponent goes for a successful Rock Slide bait, so I'm going to stay in here and continue to go for moves, and I'm looking to win this matchup because Golisopod, doesn't appreciate having those Rock Slides thrown its way, and my opponent safe swap in the spiciest thing I've seen all week, and that's a Shadow Electivire. They're going to get they're going to shield up that Drill Run after they take it, and now the Giratina gets to come in and just mow through this thing. They do have Ice Punch, and that does a fairly significant amount of damage here to the Giratina altered, and they get to him very, very quickly. It's like 5-4, 5-4. So I'm going to have to throw a move here before they get to the next one. And that's going to leave me with low energy. So this is fairly, you know, they're going to be able to get a fairly decent farm off of me if they come in with something that doesn't do like 1 damage to Giratina, for example. So we're going to see the opponent comes in with a Clefable, and that is exactly the dangerous thing I was thinking of here. Thankfully, Sandslash does wall it, but Sandslash needs to be a little bit more healthy to really, you know, eat a Meteor Mash, and I have no shields left, so this is all going to be coming down to Golisopod in the end here. My opponent not running Moonblast, or is running Moonblast, and they're not running the Meteor Mash, which makes me think they might be running the Psychic instead. So this opens up an opportunity for me to possibly win this game. They're going to come in with their G-Fisk, and I'm going to be able to go for the Ice Punch there, take out the G-Fisk, and still get to a Drill Run right before going down against Clefable, and then Golisopod just comes in and farms down, and that's going to be a good game. Well played to my opponent. Another close one here. Psychic does do some damage, but unfortunately not going to be quite enough, and they concede the match here. So going into this next game, we're going to have our Sandslash up against a Jellicent. So you guys have seen this one already. I'm going to play it the exact same way as I mentioned. Again, consistency is key here. That's what I've teach, you know, my students and practice it myself, is once I find something that works against a specific lead matchup, I'm going to continue to do that same exact thing until it stops working or until I find a reason to adjust. So for this case, my opponent builds up to the Shadow Ball as they normally do. I'm gonna go ahead and shield the Shadow Ball, or potentially it could be a Surf too, and I have had times where they've baited Surf, but I'm still going to continue to play this out, and because I know that when they get to that second Shadow Ball, I can actually farm them down entirely without having to throw any extra energy. So I go down shields. My opponent now brings in a Charizard, and that is going to be a mistake for them because I can go for these Ice Punches, and that's actually going to be a fairly significant chunk of HP that's coming off of this Charizard. And then I can come in with Giratina after they've lost their other shield, and I should be able to get to a Dragon Claw before they do, but I try to catch a Blast Burn there, which didn't really work out in my favor. So now they've got 2 Dragon Claws, and this then becomes very dangerous. Normally I would have been happy if they had successfully thrown that Blast Burn into the Giratina, but now I should be able to get to the Dragon Claw and take out their Charizard. I'm going to overfarm by just a bit because I'm counting their moves and making sure that I throw right before they get to the next Dragon Claw. Their Charizard's going to go down, and then we're going to see whatever they come in with next after they wait out their switch timer. So Scrafty comes in, and this is exactly where Dragon Breath Giratina is going to shine. We're going to be able to see it actually do damage into this Scrafty, a significant amount, honestly. Like, it's already almost down to half, and they're forced to throw Foul Play. If they throw Power Up Punch, that's just a problem for them. So now Golisopod can come in and absorb the damage coming from these counters and just throw Liquidation, but I decide to hold on to my energy because I know that 1 Foul Play won't KO. I have no reason to farm it, or no reason to throw immediately here. So I decide to keep farming up, and my opponent does go for the swap, and I just know I can get up to double Liquidation, and that's going to be a good game. Very well played to my opponent. Safely go for double moves and take out the Scrafty and get that win. And then this was 2 back-to-back 4-1 sets, so made a solid 80-point gain with this team, so very good team indeed. And we're going to see another Jellicent lead. This might be the one that actually decided to go ahead and bait me on the first move. So we're going to see how that goes here in this game. I believe this could also be the last game. So while we're playing out this matchup, just pay attention. But I'll also plug it. You know, this team did very well for my patron group and I before it. You know, I think it got featured on a couple of other channels also during the last rotation. But for the most part, I feel like this team kind of went under the radar, and I'm pretty happy for it because it's really good. But all the teams that I find on the internet, as well as the ones that I come up with myself, go onto my Patreon Discord long before they touch YouTube. So if you're interested in getting those teams or any of those tips or any of my meta-analysis before they go on YouTube, go ahead and check out the pinned description or pinned comment and the description of the video, as well as after this battle a little pop-up should come up for Patreon. Also, you can check me out on Metafy if you're looking for some coaching to get better at Go Battle League, PvP in general. I have a hobby of trying to help people reach their goals, and I would like to help you as well if you're looking to get into that sort of thing. So Golisopod's going to continue to go here. Go, go, go as it does. And X-Scissor, I'm looking to try and get shields, honestly, but instead we're just going to go for X-Scissors because if they're deciding not to shield this, then so be it. But the Scrafty here is not going to be able to just deal with all the damage that's about to come its way. Now we've got to be careful here because they do have 2 shields, and they're going to have to start shielding something eventually. Now they go for a CMP tie here, which is really good for me. That means that the energy is not going to be able to go into anything else, but they go for a power-up punch, which is also dangerous. This is it's going to be a close one. It's a nail biter, I'm telling y'all. So the opponent is going to go for this foul play here, and I'm going to be able to go for some Dragon Claws. This is getting real close, really uncomfortable. My opponent's going to have to shield something eventually, but now what I've been able to do is I've been able to bring them down into the range before they throw the next charge move for my Sand Slash to KO with a charge move of its own. And they decide to just not shield. They know they have to save that shield for the Sand Slash, and now unfortunately for them, they've been so low that it doesn't matter anymore. So we're going to be able to farm down with Golisopod and take the game, and that's a good one. Thank you all so much for watching. Again, you can support the channel, and by doing so you also support my family as well, which I always appreciate any gestures in that regard because I love them all so much. And that's going to do it for me. You should see all the links and everything appearing here, I believe. So I'll leave you all with that, and you have a great one, and thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you in the next video. Bye-bye.